to the live stream. I am Kamisha, and joined with me next to me is Rasafi, right? Say
Yep.
hello. Let everyone know what you do.
Oh my gosh, I am based in Singapore and I'm an emotional intelligence coach. I counsel people and help them understand their emotions so that they can effectively communicate with the people around them. So that's what I do. Kamisha, what do you do?
Ooh, yes. And I am a certified behavior consultant, and I work specifically with moms who are coaches to help them maximize their potential time and money so they can spend more time with their families. And we do that by executing intentionally, right? Plans of action. So today, though, we're hopping on here. We're going to be having these live streams where we're talking about topics that we think about, but we don't really talk about. And I feel like it's really, really important to have these conversations because it's hard to make an impact when all the hard conversations are being hidden, right? So today, there's something that's been happening to me over the last week or two, probably the last month, that I gotten pretty fed up about, right? And so today we're going to be talking about mediocre service, paying people for bad service, and how effective communication is that thing that can turn service around, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Um, I
So,
kind of feel like we've all experienced this, whether you realize it or not. It could be from a bad haircut, a bad nail service, it could be anything. So definitely, anytime you spend money and you kind of are not pleased with the result, what do you do? How do you handle it? Do you just kind of keep quiet and let it be, or do you kind of like tell somebody something? Do you try to, to get it corrected? How do you work that out? Because it is a lot about how you feel about, your confidence, what you feel is expected, how should you handle the other person? There's a lot going into that. And then, of course, how the other person reacts or responds.
oh yeah, 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 and that's important. So, so let's just talk about a couple of examples. So I have a couple of examples. One as recent as today, which really sparked this in my mind. So today, it was something, I felt like it was something really simple that
Okay.
just saying one sentence could have rectified. Instead,
Right.
I just got poor service, right? So I get my grocery shopping done, and it's through an app that a lot of people know about. It's called Shipt, right?
Okay.
And well, what happened was the shopper, when something's not available, they let you know it's not available, and then they provide a substitute, right? So as we're going, she said something wasn't available. She didn't provide a substitute right away. And I'm like, well, maybe she's looking, so I give her time. And then I respond back once I don't receive any information. I respond back and I said, hey, was there a substitute? And she was like, no, the shelves were bare. I was like, well, it was really simple. It was bread, right? It was sub bread. I was like, well, can you just get regular wheat bread? That'll be fine. And she was like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't. I'm already in the checkout line. I'm like, you're in the checkout line? What? Like, how did you get from telling me it wasn't available to the checkout line? Because there's also a message that goes out when they're headed to checkout that says, hey, I'm headed to checkout. Would you like anything else?
Wow.
Right?
Okay.
I didn't get
So I'm guessing you
that
didn't get
either.
that.
So then I was like, well, you never told me you were going to check out. I didn't know that there wasn't a substitute. And then she goes on to say, well, I can't really stop in because I got 3 orders that I'm shopping at the same time. So I can't really stop. I have to keep moving and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, okay. So in my mind, the first thought that went through my mind was like, okay, why are you shopping 3 orders at one time? Because somebody's going to be missing something. Something's going to go wrong, right? Because
Yeah.
you're already showing that you're not efficient because you couldn't respond to me right away before getting in the checkout line. So already something's wrong. And so then I was like, well, I had given up on it. I wasn't gonna say anything. But then the next message that came was, I'm sorry that I didn't get I couldn't substitute 1 out of 58 items. Right. So then in my mind I'm like, well, wait a
Oh,
minute, where are you going with this? Like that message did not need to come through. I did not need to know about that message. It was irrelevant, right?
It
Now
was
the
very
whole
defensive.
prior message, the whole prior message was irrelevant as well. I didn't need to know you were shopping 3 orders. Like I didn't need to know that either, right? Now her just saying, oh, the shelves were bare, and so I didn't send a substitute because there wasn't a substitute. I could kind of accept that, even though you should have told me there wasn't a substitute. But
Right.
then the snarky message made me feel like, okay, now I'm just getting some sarcasm when it should have
You're
just been
just
like,
justifying your
okay,
behavior. Yeah.
I understand where you're coming from. I should have told you so that you could make a different selection, make a different decision, instead of the snarky message, right? Pretty. So it's pretty simple, like effective communication. And to some people, it might not matter. But when you think about it, you never know what people are going through or how much bad service somebody has received, right? And your bad service could be that breaking point, though, right? That last straw to where you're like, okay, whatever. You know what I mean? And then it's a break. Because for me, if you think about it, in this app, the only way not to get that person again is to give them a bad rating, right?
Oh my. Yeah.
So her telling me the stuff is not on the shelves, so I didn't send a substitute, I probably would have like, okay, and went on about my business. But now, because she's being sarcastic and snarky, I'm like, why should
Gotta put it
I
in there.
be a part of that? So now I have to give a bad rating because I don't want her shopping for me anymore. Like, I don't want her
Right.
to be my shopper. You get what I'm saying? And so
Yeah.
I don't think people think these things through. But then also, at first, I was being understanding. I'm like, I don't know what she's going through. I don't know why she's
Yeah.
shopping three orders. Maybe she needs to shop 3 orders. You get what I mean? So in my
Yeah.
mind, I'm like, okay, I don't know what she's going through, so I'm not going to hold it against her. But then to send me the next message, I'm like, okay, I don't have to deal with that. She doesn't know what I'm going through. She doesn't know how much bad
Right.
service I've gotten over these past few days.
You don't know how badly you're depending on that bread.
Yeah. And then she doesn't know that, okay, you're not bringing it. Now I have to, as a mom with a toddler and a smaller child in the house, now I have to figure out when I'm going to be able to get out to go get something.
Right.
One thing, just one thing, right? One thing, so that we could have that for whenever we need it. You know what I mean? Like, and she was like 1 out of 58 items. And I told her, I did in my message back to her, I said, one item might seem insignificant to you, but you don't know what dynamic you're causing by not getting that one item for the customer. I didn't even say for me. I said for the customer, right? Because you don't know why they're having somebody else shop for them. Obviously, they're having somebody else shop for them because they can't get to do it themselves, right? So that's just one incident, right?
And so that's a great incident to relay as an example, because here's what I hear on her end. When she gave back that snarky comment and she told you it was, one of 3 orders and then it was 1 of 58, I hear her being very defensive because she feels like making a mistake is a bad thing and that now she's a bad person. So now she's trying to defend herself and make it seem like, oh no, it wasn't that bad because I want to celebrate the 57 items that I did get right. But the point is, if you're being paid to do a service, right, you are allowed to make mistakes. If the client, right, if your customer points out the fact that you made a mistake, the easiest way is to accept that, yeah, okay, I'm human, I made a mistake, how do I rectify this? But that's not what she wanted to do. She wanted to defend herself and tell you, no, I'm not a bad person, get off my back, I did all these things right instead. You need to have more compassion because I did 3 things at the same time, but that's not your concern. You paid her for a service just like the other 2 people paid for a service. So unfortunately, I don't think we take criticism or feedback very well. Some of us, right? And some of us feel like the minute that there is some kind of feedback, you're telling me I'm a bad person. Now, you can make a mistake and do something wrong one time, but wrong doesn't mean bad. And I think that's where the communication and the understanding is kind of misfiring on each other. So a lot of times you were polite, right? You mentioned, hey, is there an alternative? But she was already feeling some kind of way. And the minute you pointed out her mistake, it was like, oh, no, I can't do it now. I'm not going back. I'm not gonna, pretend like this is a big mistake and stop my entire. It would have been an easy fix. It would have been an easy fix if she
Mhm.
did what was expected. The minute she got to that shelf and saw your list item was not there, she could have messaged you right away and say, "Hey, I don't have this. This is what I'm seeing. What do you want instead?" Instead of running through the entire store, finishing everything up like, "Oh, I'm at checkout." So I feel like she missed a couple of steps. Not a bad thing, a very human thing. But the minute you
Mhm.
pointed it out, she got so defensive and felt some kind of way, and she felt like she needed to give you every reason for why she was winning, which is why yours is insignificant now because it's 1 to 58. So unfortunately, when you deal with people, this is what you get. I'm not saying go switch to AI by any means, but I'm saying that we as people need to accept that mistakes aren't bad. Mistakes are a part of life. We all make mistakes. How many times have you walk into a room to kind of do something, you end up doing something else because you were distracted, and then because of time sensitive whatever, you can't do what you originally came in there to do. We're human. We have tons of stuff on our mind. We have 100 different things we're trying to manage at the same time. And as
Mhm.
moms, definitely. Oh my gosh. Food and children and husband and us at some point, if we get a chance to get around to us, like that's a lot to handle.
Yes.
But we tend to get really defensive when something's pointed out. And it's not everybody. Some people can deal with it a little bit better than others. But
Mhm.
yeah, I feel like if she had just dropped how she felt about what you said and just focused on what you said, instead of reading into the fact that, you're thinking that she's a
Mhm.
bad person, so then she
And
has to
just focus
justify it.
on what she was supposed to do. Mhm. Yeah, because I felt like she, instead of just focusing on what she was supposed to do, then it's like, well, I did this, but okay, complete the action,
Because you're
right?
right, all those
Finish.
comments were unnecessary.
Hmm. Finish. Because in my message back to her, I said, look, I wasn't angry. I wasn't snappy with you. I just said, like, hey, it would have been nice to know that it wasn't available, so I could choose something else, and that you forgot to send me the message that you were going to check out, so I would know that you were going to check out. Not that I didn't have time. I was rushing because I have 3 orders. Because I told her that doesn't matter to none of us, not any of the clients that you're shopping for right now. It doesn't matter to no 3 of us. If she would have said that to one of the other ones, it doesn't matter because we're paying for a service, right? And there's a surcharge on the groceries, right? Because that's
Oh
how
yeah,
they make their money.
yeah,
So we're paying for a service,
premium.
and we are paying for the convenience. And you do get tips, and you do get ratings, so that other people will
Yeah.
choose you, and so that other people can see you have a high rating, and the things you get there. Aside from the ratings, there are different things that pop up that you can rate them on individually, and that shows up on their profile, so people can choose you individually as like their personal shopper, right? So
And that
I
would be
feel
the
like,
ultimate. You want that.
yeah, you do want that. So some people, I've had one of the shoppers in the past say, oh, your one bad rating is not going to do anything, and I'm like, they really need to step up who they're bringing in. So I do have a question though.
Hmm.
Aside from this, so I did have one more example. So one more example that I wanted to give is we bought all of our appliances from Sears, right? So we have 5 or 6 appliances that are under the Sears home protection, which is like an agreement where you pay yearly. They come out and fix things if they go wrong, or they replace the
Like a
items,
maintenance
right?
thing. Hmm.
Yeah, so we pay every year. And so our dryer decided to stop working, or spinning, or whatever, however you say it. It just stopped. It doesn't work
Oh no.
properly. And we scheduled a maintenance appointment, right, for them to come out. First, we weren't able to get an appointment until 2.5, maybe 3 weeks later. That was the earliest available. And I'm like, okay, that's a long
Okay.
time, but what can we do about it, right? So then when that appointment time comes, we're like, set the time aside, we're waiting, working and waiting for them to show up. Nobody ever shows up, right? Nobody shows up. The time gets
Oh,
pushed back by an hour. I'm like, okay. And then that hour comes, then 2 hours, and I'm like, okay, they didn't show up yet. So I'm contacting, right? And the automated message told me that the technician rescheduled. right? The technician didn't call. The technician didn't say, okay, is this day and time good for you? Nothing. So they rescheduled, right? Which was the reschedule was maybe 3 or 4 days later. And I was like, okay, whatever, we'll just wait. So the day comes, and guess what happens again?
I
Somebody
know.
calls this time after they cancel the appointment. Someone calls and say, hey, we're calling. You were supposed to have service today, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, this is like the second time. And they were like, okay, we're going to get you in tomorrow. So tomorrow comes, time passes. Nobody's contacted us. So I called the number back. They didn't answer. They didn't answer. And then I left a message. And the next thing I know, I'm calling again to the 800 number, like, hey, look, we're trying to get service. And they had rescheduled again, which was another 7 days later, right? So we're all already over a month, you know.
Oh my
And
God.
that's what I'm saying. And talking to the 800 number, they're like, oh, we can't really do anything. All we do is schedule, but I'll send something to the tech line. And the tech line is like, supposed to call you 24, 48 hours. Do you think we got a call? No, no one called, right?
Did you
So we're
ask
just
for a
waiting for
manager?
the
Did you
next.
see people get real upset when you suddenly say, hey, I want to speak to a manager? Then they get real defensive. But like, you get
Oh
the
yeah, they
runaround like this.
escalated it. They escalated, but they were like, well, we can't do anything. So I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. So if they don't, and then I was like, okay, now we're gonna see if they show up. So if no one shows up, the whole thing is like we're paying for this agreement.
Yeah,
You're not
yearly.
showing up, and now we're still gonna have to pay somebody else to come out if you guys don't show up. So again, service, effective communication. They don't communicate effectively with each other because they didn't even know that someone called me locally to reschedule. They were like, how do they do that? They can't do that. We only schedule on the 800 number. You know what I mean? So obviously they're not communicating with each other, and they're not communicating with the customer.
I feel like, okay, so I think we were talking about this earlier, right? We pay for a service. Can you hear that?
Yes, that's weird. What is that?
Okay, so it's National Day. It's Singapore's 56th birthday, and they're doing flyovers.
Oh,
All my windows are shut, and you can still
okay.
hear planes. I'm sorry,
I
y'all. I'm
was
really
like,
sorry.
I'm
I
over here. I'm
apologize.
checking my speakers. I thought that the broadcast went out.
Oh my gosh,
It's
yeah.
okay.
Hopefully, it's not too many more. But yeah, what we were talking about before we even went live is the fact that people don't take pride in their work no more. I feel like back in the day, people were thinking about, you're paying for a service and they want to provide the best. They want you to have a good feeling about using them because guess what? The Yellow Pages has like 100 other people you could go with. Here, we're worried about, we have our favorite things the way they like to do, the favorite apps, and then they're worried about one or two bad reviews or not worried about them, as the case may be. But they don't want to adjust their service to accommodate some of these things so that they don't happen again with anybody else. Like the shopper very easily could have been like, all right, well, if this is a problem for one person, it could be a problem for many people. Let me adjust. That's not what she was thinking. And then with this Sears Roebuck, the maintenance thing, people aren't realizing that, hey, these people, they work hard for a living. They're putting their money with you and they're expecting for somebody to show up. And if you're not going to be, if you're going to sit like miles away, I get it. You have Sears all over the country. You're going to sit miles away and be like, oh no, I can't help you. That's out of my wheelhouse. I'm not, I can't do anything about that. How do you feel about saying that in the first place? You don't have any responsibility. Oh, I'm just an employee. That's the company's problem. This is a company made of people though. Like, when do you start taking responsibility or at least want to provide good service for the money that you're being paid, right? And it could be easily translated to communication among friends. Let's say we're trying to build a company together, you and I, right? And if there's a situation and you have to reschedule some stuff or aren't able to, to show up for a scheduled meeting or whatever that we might have, I would expect for you to tell me, hey, I got something going on. I can't make it today. Can we do it another day? But I have so many people that will disappear off the radar for a couple of days, right? You can't contact them. You can't mess them, nothing. And then suddenly they come back and be like, they have this laundry list of things that they had to do that they couldn't tell you about because, it happened in the moment. No, 24-hour service, right? Wi-Fi all over the world. Send me a message. Let me know what's going on so I don't worry. I don't start thinking and imagining stories in my head about what it is that you got going on, right? it's common decency. It is lack of communication. Simple stuff. Like if you just tell me, maybe I can adjust for that or decide something different. But you're not giving me the choice either because you're disappearing or you're not showing up or you're not communicating anything at all. So it's up to my imagination of what to do. You there?
Okay. Okay, there we go. I think I lost you for a quick second, but it's okay. No, I get it. Like the effective communication, right? So the question that I have though, I only have one question for this is, do you
Please.
think the pandemic had an effect on service, like people hiring anybody that is looking for a job, or people going anywhere they could to get a job, like if they're not people persons, but they're working in positions where they have to deal with people and they're just there to make the money. You get what I mean? Like, do you think the pandemic had
I get
a
that.
real
I get
effect
that
on service?
entirely, but it comes down to your values, your character. Now, if somebody were to pay you money, you're just going to pocket the money and just, maybe show up, half-ass it. Are you okay with doing that? You feel good about doing that? Because you'd be pissed if somebody did that to you. You pay money and it didn't, wasn't the service you expected. I'm not saying it has to be 5-star service, but at least take pride in your work. And if there's something that you're not doing right, maybe it's a new job, you don't know the ropes yet, you're trying to figure it out. Somebody gives you some feedback, you're like, okay, this is how I become even better. Let me take that in stride and adjust where I can. I'm not saying that a mistake means you're a bad person by any means, but realize you're capable of mistakes, which means, all right, I don't have to get my defense, I don't have to get my back up, I don't have to puff out my chest and no, I'm good. No, take it in stride. Provide the best service you can. If you're going to be somewhere, be somewhere. If you're going to promise to collaborate with somebody, or if you're going to promise to cook for someone, do the best you can. Do the best you can. We don't do the best we can anymore. We do the bare minimum and hope we can get by with that. And it's the same with paying for products, right? Paying for coaching services, paying for anything. Everything is money right now. And I get it. Pandemic means we don't have the same opportunities we used to have, but it's still people you're dealing with. And it's still your name and reputation. Take some pride in that. Feel good about yourself. You should be able to walk away from a job you did and feel like, yeah, I laid everything on the table. I did all I could, and I'm okay now. It didn't work out or whatever. But no one does that anymore. Why? I don't understand.
Yeah. And it bothers me so much because with my values and my standards, I can't do that. I can't treat another person that way. I have to feel like I'm giving everything I can, or else it nags in the back of my mind, all the time. It's oh, that you didn't do the best you could do. You didn't give them everything you could. So, and then while I'm there providing the service, and I feel like I want to back out a little bit, or I feel like I want to, do a little less, my conscience won't let me do it.
It don't feel good.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good. And I feel like people are not focused on impact and the positive impact, right? They don't know about the impact that they're having on a person, whether they provide a positive impact or a negative impact.
It doesn't take much either.
Very important, right?
It doesn't take very much. And I want to ask you personally, what do you think influenced you most about this, this integrity thing? You're going to be where you say you're going to be. You're going to do what you say you're going to do. Do you think it was from your upbringing, or do you think it was school of hard knocks? You learned the hard way. You've had some really bad service, and you just vowed that you weren't going to be what do you think influenced you more?
I think for me, it was my foundation. From when I was a child all the way growing up, always instilled in me to do the right thing, always instilled to me to be of service, be kind, treat people the way I wanted to be treated. And it just stayed with me because I really can't treat people bad. No matter what they're doing, I can't reciprocate those ill intentions, those bad feelings. I cannot reciprocate it. I can only meet it with, okay, I see what you're doing. It's not for me. And dismiss those people and those things because I can't do it. I know that people, they talk about being, what's the word that they use all the time? Hold on, I'm gonna think of the word. They talk about, not revenge, but it's another word
petty?
Where, not petty, because I can be petty sometimes, Petty to me is
I be
not
having
bad.
petty
Petty is
thoughts.
petty. Petty is petty. But I can match petty, but I can't match treating someone bad. And I can't think of the word, but if it comes to me, I'll bring it back up. But it's
Okay.
spiteful. That's the
Yeah.
word. I can't be spiteful, even though people might think that because you don't deal with them anymore or you move on that you're being spiteful. For me, it's not spiteful. It's protecting my peace. Like I
Right.
don't have room to be spiteful. Like I don't have that type of thought. I don't dwell
Because
on these
honestly, being
things.
spiteful would affect your peace. It really would affect your peace
Yeah.
because then you have like reciprocation. You have like, repercussions that pop up all of a sudden from being spiteful. Like you're prolonging the problem, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely are prolonging the problem, and you have the power to actually stop it in its tracks
Yeah.
by removing yourself, right? You don't
Yep.
have to. I've had
Absolutely.
so many times where people get way angrier that I didn't engage them, right?
Yeah.
The people that get angry because you didn't engage them,
Because they were waiting for a
so
response. Yep.
yeah. And I'm not a reactive type person. I'm a responsive person. So I'm always going
But
to
that's
think
because
about
you
what
have
I say
awareness about you too.
and
You
do.
understand communication.
Yep. I'm going to always think about what I say or do before I do. So that effective communication is very, very key. So sometimes I don't even say anything because sometimes not saying anything is the best form of communication because
Yes.
riling them up and prolonging the interaction, it's just sometimes not worth it.
And for me personally, like I started off with that foundation of, do the best you can, put everything like, do it right the first time or do it very well the first time so you don't have to keep repeating or going back and, making up for the mistakes. So I got that first. But then the rest of my life was about seeing how people treat each other and vowing that I didn't want to um, be in a situation where somebody was receiving a service or a product from me and they had any kind of complaints, or if they were, upset with something, that I could easily rectify it. Because the minute you start defending yourself, it's almost like we're not talking about the product or the service anymore. Now you're talking about me as a person, and I had to separate that. So for me, I just wanted to do the best I can. And as much as you get bad reviews, you still have bad interactions sometimes. Some people are just never happy, and that's those
Yeah.
people. But I was not about to ever lower my standard because there is that feeling too, like, oh, I'm not going to try so hard anymore because people are like this. No, but I don't want to generalize either. I want to keep this level of communication, this level of service, because I feel like it's a hospitality thing. Maybe it's a Southern hospitality thing. I don't know, but it's something about being proud at the end of the day for the way you handled yourself.
Yes. Yes. And being able to say, okay, I didn't interact in a way where when I walk away, I feel like I need to go back and redeem what I already did, right?
Yes,
Like that
yes. I
feeling
don't want
that,
to be the kind
the
of person
what
where I'm
ifs,
forever apologizing. Yeah,
yeah, the what ifs, right? Oh, I could have handled that a better way. Sometimes it does happen. I'm not going to say that
yeah.
we're
Sometimes you just
perfect.
don't know
We're
enough.
human. Yes, sometimes we're human. So sometimes there's times where you just had enough, right? And then maybe you might reflect on that and say, how can you have handled it better? But it starts with at least being aware enough to say, okay, I could have handled that better, right? Because
Right.
sometimes we're not even aware of it. So I think this has been a really great conversation, and we can continue talking
Absolutely.
about effective communication because I think that's a good topic. So just for everyone watching now live, watching the replay,
And if
just
now
know that we'll
witnessed,
be on here at the time of this live stream. We'll be on every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern in my time and 8 a.m. Singapore time, wherever Sati is. And we'll be talking about different topics that we just want to have the conversation on, the hard conversations, talking about the real in the conversation. And I guess we're going to take the series on effective communication because I love talking about communication and how we can begin to communicate where we feel good and the other person feels good, and it's not selfish communication.
absolutely. I feel like the more aware we are, the better we communicate. And knowing people means we need to know ourselves pretty well too. So that it kind of like bleeds out from us. It's really helpful, I think. So thank you so much, you guys, for joining us. Hopefully you join us again next week. And
Yes.
Kamisha, thank you so much for hosting.
Yeah. And thank you for joining us again. And again, I'm Kamisha. I am a certified behavior consultant. And this is Miss Rasati. Tell them who you are. Like right here. There we go.
Hey, you guys, this is Rasati out here in Singapore, and I am an emotional intelligence coach. I do counsel, and I believe that feelings can lead you to so much better communication going forward. So I'll see you again soon.
All right. So we'll see you all next week. Thank you for joining.